Welcome back to another YouTube video. The time now is 11:01. We've been up since 4:14, 4:15, something along those lines, so I'm tired now. But I wanted to do a YouTube video, and one thing I've said to myself is I will not post a YouTube video if I don't feel like I'm being authentically myself in these videos. And one thing that frustrates me a lot, especially now in this space, is everyone talks about being authentic, being raw, and just being themselves. And one thing I realize is that everyone that says that is everything but that. Like, they have their script and making sure everything is structured perfectly for it to go viral. And I've told myself now that the way I do my content, especially on YouTube, I do not care if I go viral because I focus more on value. And even sometimes when I talk and I start making my videos, I sometimes fall into that mind frame of wanting to make sure it's structured, making sure it goes viral. And now the reason I changed my mentality and mind frame from that is because I realized that most of the time when people do that is for their own benefit. And the reason I do the videos that I do now is because I want to speak to my younger self, to the person that actually needs to hear this, because this is why I do this content. Because I know that someone down the line who will watch this, maybe not now, maybe not today, but somewhere down the line, is going to feel exactly how my younger self felt. The person who needed to be me today, the person that needs this information, which is why I always try to be raw and authentic. If I don't feel that, then I'm not going to release this video. And all of my videos that I post on YouTube, I do not have anything scripted. I literally just turn on my camera and I want to speak my heart out to you guys. And today what I want to talk about is exactly that, being authentically yourself. And that was always something that was so hard for me to do, which is why I think it cost me so much to actually be raw and express myself. Because I always wanted to make sure everything was meticulated, everything was perfect. Perfect for the acceptance of others, perfect for validation, especially in the online space when you're doing things to be validated, to go viral, to get these likes. And yes, it is important, especially to grow. And that was basically the whole reason why I started social media, because I wanted to have these followers, I wanted to have this fame. Now, it was one of the worst things that could happen to me, because I was so focused now on how am I going to go viral, that when I finally learned to make it happen, and after 4 years of posting content continuously, I learned to say my dad's Chinese and my mom's Colombian, and then in a space of literally 10 days, I managed to get over 100,000 followers. Just one video alone got me 98,000 followers. And now, you might be saying this and like, well, that's a great problem to have. Now, in reality, it wasn't. It wasn't a great problem, because now I validated myself so much on this result. So now I related success to views, I related success to followers. So everything I was doing was to get these followers. So I would curate my content not out of passion and what I truly meant, but I created this content to make sure it hit the algorithm, to make sure it was what people wanted to see, even if it wasn't what I wanted to truly share. So it got to a point where the only thing I knew how to do was say my dad's Chinese and my mom's Colombian. It kept on going viral, it kept on going views. Now it got to a point where whenever I didn't get 1,000, whenever I didn't get a million views, I'll feel frustrated, and then I started to feel anxious, and then I started to feel like, wait, this is not good enough. Then I started to feel like I'm not good enough, and then I started to feel, well, I'm gonna be a failure. And then I started to feel like, oh no, like, what is gonna be of my life? And the reason that it stems from that is because I put so much focus onto this, and even to this day, the way everything shifted, and I'm gonna get onto that now, is because it stemmed from, I didn't go to university, I didn't go to college, so I said to myself, I've always been an ambitious person. I've always had this dream where I've wanted to be very financially successful. This is me being honest, and now it being documented. I've put it out there that I'm going to make $85,000 per month. So in a year's time from now, I'll look at this video when I make $85,000 per month or more. But I said to myself, how do I want to make this money? I wouldn't want to make $85,000 per month working in an office. It's not for me. I wouldn't want to make $85,000 per month making dishonest business. I want to make $85,000 doing something that I truly love. And one thing I've noticed since young, I've always been this very empathetic person. I've always taken other people's suffering as my own, which is why I understand so many people. And the person that I understand and I speak to very clearly in the videos I speak to is people who feel like they've been governed by emotions. People who, they want this goal and they know they can achieve so much more, but they're so controlled by this emotion that the moment it's time to act, the moment they feel upset, they feel paralyzed and they feel immobilized and they can't do their thing. And guess what? Once they get back to their senses, they start to feel this sense of regret, and then they start to beat themselves up for not doing what they were meant to do, just because in that moment they stay frozen, and then the whole cycle repeats itself. And the reason I understand it so much is because I was that person. So going back to the point when I was creating content, yes, you're meant to create content to get these followers. I realized something. I stopped posting for a whole month. I stopped posting for 30 days. Then I realized, wait, no one checked in on me. No one actually cared. So what I viewed as success, and I pictured myself as being this important person with 100,000 followers, that actually no one cared. Then I realized I was being this clown on the internet. I was just being this person trying to validate myself with everyone's opinion, but no one actually cared. In the moment when you're getting the comments, when you're getting all of this attention, I was loving it because I wasn't being validated by myself. And I didn't understand what it means to validate yourself, because once you learn to validate yourself, you actually don't care about anything external. And this is deep rooted when I actually sat down with myself throughout those 30 days. And it stemmed way back. And it stemmed way back when I was living underneath my dad's Chinese takeaway. And I don't know for you guys which are new here, I've said this before on my story, where my parents were going through a financial situation. Now they had to make the decision from where we were living before to live underneath my dad's Chinese takeaway. And back then, that got real messy real quick to near the end of my dad actually selling the takeaway. Like I remember it got to a point where my dad had one chef, he was the only chef, he was the delivery driver, and like my mom was helping doing the deliveries. Like I remember that perfectly, and it wasn't a nice sight growing up. And me being this teenager, like I feel like this is why I carry this responsibility, where I feel like I need to be the one to break the generational curse, because growing up I saw the blueprint of what I didn't want. I would always see money would always be an issue. It would always be my dad working to pay these bills. It would always be my dad being the main chef, then being the second chef, because the way normally a Chinese takeaway works, I don't know if you're Chinese, you'll probably understand. Normally it's like the main chef, the one that cooks the different dishes, which is the meats, the proteins. That's one chef, and then the second chef is the one that normally prepares the rice, prepares the noodle, like the easier stuff. So there's normally two chefs in the kitchen. But my dad was doing both of the roles because one of the chefs left, and then after the delivery driver left, and my dad didn't really want to get a delivery driver. I don't really understand what was happening back then, but my dad didn't want to get a driver. So my dad said, you know what, I will do everything. So on Monday to Fridays, my dad would be doing the cooking of the main chef, the cooking of the second chef, and he would also do deliveries. And I remember I would be helping there with my mom and my dad, and there'll be times where now my dad would do the deliveries, and then we'll have customers, and then there's a backlog of orders, and then there was no one there to cook the food. Now growing up seeing this, at the time I didn't think much, but I was just like, I don't want to live this life. And then I realized, if people are buying expensive cars, or people are living a different life, why can't we do it? So I made it my mission growing up to how can I achieve this? Now, this is why I realized quickly that actually money is a very important tool, but this is when people make money success and they link money to success, when in reality I realized that money isn't success. Success is doing that thing which is hardest to you. And this links back to when I was living underneath my dad's Chinese takeaway. When I was probably around just entering secondary school, that's when I realized that there's a lot of judgment going along. And at that time is when I was the most self-conscious person ever, the person who had the most anxiety, the person who was filled with the most self-doubt. Because living there, I felt like everyone else was judging me, when in reality, I was judging myself. Looking back at it now, I realize that life is actually a mirror. It's not a window. It's a reflection. Life is not as it is. Life is as you are. And being a kid, I remember I was so insecure and I felt like everyone was attacking me. I was so defensive because I just didn't like the fact that I was living underneath this Chinese takeaway. because going to school, everyone would make fun of like Chinese people, ching chong this, and I bet you live underneath a Chinese takeaway, you live on top of your dad's Chinese takeaway. But in reality, I refused it, but in reality, I was living underneath this Chinese takeaway. And I remember I would have to leave like 40 minutes earlier from school. So earlier, I'll leave my house 40 minutes earlier to make sure that no kids saw me leaving the Chinese takeaway. And then straight after school, I would rush home to make sure there was no kids that were standing in front of the sweet shops which we had in front of the Chinese takeaway, because I didn't want any of the kids to see me, because I didn't want to be that, oh, that's that Chinese boy that lives underneath the Chinese takeaway. Now, I remember coming home sometimes and I realized when someone was there, the shutter would be halfway, so I just had to open the door with the key and I'll go in. But on days where no one was home, the shutter would be down. I remember that was 2 minutes of shame. Like, I'd have to put the key in and go up, and the shutter would take so long to come up, and then eventually come up and all these kids would go by, and I remember just putting my head down, and like all of this was building up to the character of the person that I didn't want to become, a character which I carried on for so many years. Now I'm gonna get into it. It got so bad to the point where at the back of this Chinese takeaway there was like an estate. There was an estate, like another, I don't know how to say it, it's like enclosed area, and sometimes the gates, because the parking was there, would be open. So what I would occasionally do is I would go through the back of the parking where no one can see me, and I would jump our fence. So we had like a brick wall, so there was walls, so I would run up and jump over and go in through the back of this Chinese takeaway so no one could see me. Like, this is how ashamed I was. So I lived in constant shame, and I lived in constant guilt. So my mind was always in the shame and guilt mindset. Now, growing up, especially going into secondary school, I had very, very little self-belief. Like, I didn't believe in myself. I didn't think I was good looking. I wasn't confident. Like, the last thing I ever got was female attention. Like, I didn't even think about sex and that shit until I was probably like 18, 17. Like, this is real life stuff. Now, it got so bad that when I started to get female attention, only later on did I realize that I was an attractive male. This is when I started to work within myself. But even when I was getting the attention, I thought that this person was taking the piss. Like, my mind couldn't actually accept it. And this is how self-destructive our thoughts are. Even when you're receiving the thing that you want, you don't take it because you haven't conditioned yourself to take it. So now, growing throughout secondary school, like, I was so insecure with myself, and that's why I needed to be validated by everyone else, because I never ever validated myself. I was in constant shame, I was in constant regret, I was in constant doubt. And I showed you guys this on my last video. This is the frequency chart. Now, what did that lead to? That led to me feeling very alone. So I was always isolated. I barely had any friends. So guess what ended up happening? Now, every time I had an encounter with someone, I would be this nice guy. Everyone knew me as Brandon the nice guy, because I always wanted to make everyone feel good. Why? Because I didn't feel good. So the way they felt made me feel alive. So I always wanted to make sure that they liked me. I wanted to feel like they accepted me, because it felt good to feel accepted, because I didn't know what it felt like to be accepted by self. So I would say things that they always wanted to hear, because I wanted to make them feel good. Even when I didn't mean the things that I was saying, I would say it anyway. And every time I was saying things that I didn't mean, every time I was saying things, even when it went against my own beliefs, then guess what? I was in constant doubt with everything that I say. Because if you don't believe the things that you're saying, and then there's thoughts that you don't want to believe, now what do you believe? Because you're living a constant lie. And this took me some time to realize, but in the moment, you don't. Like, I remember I'll be in rooms, and let's just say I like this type of music, but all of a sudden, if that room of people didn't like that type of music, I would be like, I don't like that type of music too. And if they liked rap music, all of a sudden I love rap music. If all of a sudden these people dress a type of way, guess I will dress a type of way. And it gets so tiring, because in life there's so many varieties of humans, personalities. And if you try to adjust yourself to keep everyone happy, guess what? You're doing it at the expense of your own, and that's exactly what I done. Now this is what goes back to the time what I'm trying to tell you what success is. Most of the time, the reason you'll never feel satisfied with self is because you'll never reach that stage of acceptance. Before you can make change, you have to realize that something has to change. And for that to happen, you have to come to a point of acceptance. Now, once you reach that point of acceptance, like the frequency chart shows, now you start to enter high frequency state. Now you realize there's things that I can change. This is where you become successful. Being successful is the person that can overcome the things which are hardest to you. Now, going back to what I thought was success was making money. But if I lack confidence, if I struggle to speak to people, if I lack communication skills, well, guess what? This is going to hold me prisoner. This is going to conquer self until I learn to conquer self. This will keep me prisoner until I set myself free by doing the most uncomfortable thing. So you know what that is? If I struggle to communicate, well, my success will be in communicating. If I lack confidence, well, it will be going out there and doing things which may be uncomfortable. These are things that will make you successful. But this is the thing. Like humans, like pretty much everyone else, we want instant results. The moment we want change, we want the change to happen now. Now the thing is, this is when we get impatient. This is when you become like kids. This is when you become like a spoiled child. Oh, I want this now. Give me this now. Then you get frustrated and you give up and you go back to everything that you knew. Now you need to understand this one thing. I started off being this insecure person where I knew that I didn't want to be this person. Now, the way I set my mind was to think that, all right, I'm this person because of the things that I do. I quickly realized, and I want you to understand, that the best way to get a result, the best way to change anything is understand that is a result. That is a byproduct. That is not the actual problem. The problem that there's an underlying issue. There's a problem that what you are facing is a result of compounded action. So once you focus on not the result, on deeper, on the person who created the action. Because remember, the result stems from an action because that action turns into habit and those habits stem from thoughts. So the actual root of the problem is you, the way that you think, because it's causing everything else. And for me, I realized very, very soon, I said, wait, I'm in this situation because of the things that I think, and that's making me act this way. And if I'm refusing to act differently, or if I think I know better, well, that's the very reason I have these results, because I'm acting a certain way. So I realized very soon that actually I need to change my actions and focus solely on the action, because your old way of thinking is going to try to intervene, and that will turn back to you acting the same and going back to everything that you once knew. Now, I used to be so upset because it got to the point where everyone wants to see you change until it's time to actually change. And I remember when I started to change, I got into a lot of conflict, especially with like my mom and my family. Like, they got to a point where I felt like I wasn't getting support by friends, I wasn't getting support by family, because guess what? Now you start to have clashes with the way that you think. And guess what happens when you change the way that you think? You start to do things differently. And when you start to do things differently, now you have different results. But you have to ride that wave. It's called the lonely period. Like, this is something that I learned from Alex Hormozy, where he states there's a lonely period where you are now different to the people who you used to be like, the people that you had that link, that relation to. Because there's a reason why you associate with those people. There's something that you enjoyed from that people. Yes, but guess what? There's a moment where you start to believe and think differently. Now, you detach yourself from your old set of friends. Now, you're still not advanced enough to have met your new set of friends. So you're at this middle stage where you feel so alone. But this time you actually ask yourself and solidify your beliefs, whether like, this is who I want to become, and you continue going to who you can be and create this new experience of something that you've never lived before, but everything that you want. Or you can go back to that life which you already know, which you've already experienced, but you know you don't want, which is why you started this change. Now, I was going through this time where I started to feel so alone, and it's like mourning the loss of a loved one, because the saying, to become your new self, you have to kill your old self. Now, guess what? As someone who's very emotional, I feel emotions 10x. Like, I become drowned and submerged in these emotions, which is why I feel like growing up, like, I was always so scared to be around like other men, because I was so in my feminine, being raised around women. Like, I felt very afraid of the world, and all I ever wanted to do was curl up, and I didn't feel like I can ever confront it until I actually faced that part of me, and I realized that I was just being weak. I just wanted the world to save me because I always had my mother who would protect me. I would always have that person who, whenever I felt like I couldn't do something, they would come in. And at the time, as a mother, is the best thing that they could, is the best thing that they think they should do to protect their child. Now, guess what that does? It makes you not learn how to depend on self. And growing up, I felt like I always had to depend on someone else. And whenever I was faced with difficulty, I couldn't handle it. I was too weak. I would break, and I would want the world to save me. I'll feel emotional, and I'll act based on that emotion. And guess what? Acting based on emotion is the most dangerous thing. This is why many people turn to vice, why many people turn to drugs, why many people turn to addiction, because they just want to act based on how they feel. Because guess what? If you act based on how you feel, you end up going nowhere because you're expending all of this energy. You know what you have to do, but sometimes we'll get uncomfortable, and you need to learn to override that. You have to learn to override those emotions, because those emotions will take you nowhere. But when you don't listen to the emotions and you listen to the plan and you take action, guess what? You end up getting to that place that you want to get to. Now, this is why I post this video. And the reason that I was saying this video is because once you learn to do the uncomfortable, this is how you can truly be yourself. I would always be in rooms, and whenever someone would tell me something that I didn't like, I would just agree with them to make them feel good. And then as soon as I would go home, I would start to gossip and speak to other people like, oh, I can't believe they done this. But then I thought to myself, why did I tell them in their face? Because I was too afraid. Why was I afraid? Because of the way that they react. So I'd rather keep it to myself. In reality, that's not what I wanted to say. What I wanted to say is what I'm telling everyone else. But the thing is, I didn't have enough courage to tell that person just in case they viewed me a type of way. But guess what? I was always speaking in truth. That's why you always have these doubts, because you don't speak the truth. So guess what? You don't believe the things that you say because you're always living a constant lie. This is why you should never break a word and always speak the truth, even if it becomes uncomfortable. Because guess what? This is how you end up attracting your tribe. People want to be accepted by people, not by who they truly are, but who they want them to be. So this is where most people go wrong. They shift their personality. They start doing things differently to be accepted by this group. So guess what? You'll never truly be yourself because you're doing things differently to fit in. So now you can never be free, because what is true freedom is being authentically yourself. True freedom is thinking and acting as one, not having to think, just being. That's what being free is. But you can't be free if you're living under certain expectations. But the moment you start to be accepted by people for truly being you, for who you are, then guess what? This is when you truly be free. But most people are so afraid to be themselves because they might not get accepted, they might not be like that, they might not be like that. I want you to imagine yourself as someone wearing a white t-shirt. You're wearing this white t-shirt, and all of a sudden everyone around you has black t-shirts. Now you think you're going crazy. Everyone wearing black t-shirts are looking at you and they're telling you, why you're wearing a black t-shirt? You should wear a black t-shirt. Now you have all of this pressure against you, but there's a reason to why you have this white t-shirt on. So guess what? You keep on wearing it, you keep on walking, then you still see no black t-shirts. Then you start to doubt, am I crazy? Like, am I never gonna find anyone with a black t-shirt, a white t-shirt? Should I wear a black t-shirt? So you keep on going. Then as time goes by, you realize, oh wait, he's got a white t-shirt too. Then you keep going, and then you realize, wait, there's more white t-shirts. And you keep on going, and then you realize, wait, I'm surrounded by a room of white people with white t-shirts. Then guess what? This is when you find your people. This is when you actually align and you're surrounded by people who you truly want to be around, because you get to be yourself. You don't have to think. You are truly free. This is when you're authentically yourself, but you have to be able to go past discomfort, which is why I told you, you have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations every single day. The wake up time, the reading the book, the going to the gym, because you don't do that for vanity. You do that because you create the same emotion of uncomfortable with the daily process and an uncomfortable of not being able to say the things that you want to say, being able to hurt someone's feeling with the truth. This is the thing, is you guys want to make someone, you want to make a weak person happy by telling them the lie instead of hurting someone's feelings with the truth. The thing with me is, I'd rather you hurt me with a lie than comfort me with the truth. This is the thing, most of you guys don't want to do that, which is why I say create real life scenarios like a game, like athletes. They train all of their life for a 90-minute match, for a Champions League final. Now, why would you not train in this game of life? Most of you are not fit to play this game of life, which is why you always break, why you're always in depression, why you're always in anxiety. because you never trained for it. Now we're all playing this game of life, and the reason you're weak is by choice, because it's going to get uncomfortable. Do you think these athletes train every single day doing preseason and they think it's easy? No, but they're recreating hectic, hard life game scenarios, which when they go into the game, it's like, wait, we've done this already. I know what to do. I am prepared. It doesn't take me by surprise. Be that person who wears that white t-shirt with pride. But to be that person, you have to do that to become that person, which is why I always say, is the who, is not the how. This is how you actually end up being free. This is how you actually end up being your authentic self. And this is where most people never become. And most people remain strangers to themselves because they don't want to do it. Why? Because it's uncomfortable. Now the reason I share this is because I came from being the person who was filled with the most self-doubt, being the most anxious person. And that's why I don't feel sorry for anyone. Because being an empathetic person, I used to feel everyone's pain as my own, and I used to think, no, he can't do it. Then I realized, wait, why would I ever rob someone from the opportunity of changing? Because all it takes is one decision. All it takes is one moment to change your life, or it can take one moment to change your life for better, or it can take one moment to change your life for worse. One moment. One moment for you to decide that never again. One moment for you to decide that actually I'm going to choose me. One moment I'm going to choose this discomfort because I know on the other side is everything that I want. But all it takes is one moment to fall into the vice. Or it takes one moment to keep on doing these negative things that are going to keep on breaking you. Now you need to understand, you're going to have to go through hard. Go through the hardship of change and have everything you want on the other side. Or go through the hardship of regret. That when you get to 90 years old and your whole body's aching, your joints are hurting, everything's hurting, you go back and you think, oh wait, I was surrounded by people because I wanted to be accepted by them. Not because I actually wanted to be there. But why? Because, I didn't face a hardship, I didn't try, because I was so weak. And the reason I was weak was because I didn't ever try. Now, we only have around 8 years in this human experience. And I want you to stop surviving, I want you to stop existing, and I want you to start living. And the way you live is getting rid of all of these doubts and getting rid of all of this fear. And the way you do that is by taking action, and taking aligned action with this vision that you have. When you do it, it will feel uncomfortable. Just because you started, don't expect change overnight. Don't expect change in 2 weeks. But guess what? The same way, if you don't want, no matter how uncomfortable, how sad you feel, how upset you feel, if you have this vision of wanting to get in shape, you go to the gym, lift the weights, you eat right, you will make that change. The same thing with your life. And I tell you this from my personal experience. Now, I'm on road to making $85,000 per month. Back then, I could not fathom making that in 10 years. I was making $12,000 per year. Now, why could I think like that now? Because everything has changed. Now the way that I think, now the things I've been exposed to, I can think like that. However, most of you guys are trying to think how your life is going to be in 5 years from now with the current way of thinking. If you're thinking negatively, well, guess what? Your projection and trajectory of the future is also going to be negative. Like, I want you to imagine you always being in a room, and this room is your mind. And this room is full of people that will only lift 60 kilograms. Now, when you enter this room, you can't imagine doing anything more than 60 kilograms because that's all that's ever been done in this room. Now, I want you to imagine now you go to a different room, and in this room, they're lifting 190 kilos. Now, if you go into this room of 60 kilos and you say that you want to lift 150 kilos, well, everyone's going to think you're crazy, and then you're going to doubt and you're never going to believe you're going to do 60 because that's all you're surrounded by. But the moment you go into this room that everyone lifts 190 kilos and you go into this room and you want to push 100 kilos, then you realize, actually, wait, if they can push 190 kilos, why can't I? This is the same thing. You try to have this projection of the future of what you want to do, being surrounded in this room of 60 kilos, of limiting beliefs, of just seeing negativity. So this projection of the future is always going to be negative because you can't see the way out. It's like driving a car at night, you can only see 10 meters ahead of you. You keep on driving, the path illuminates as you're walking. You don't know what the next 20 meters are going to be, but you keep on driving, and guess what? the next 10 meters will show up. The next 10 meters will show up. The next 10 meters will show up. Listen, the way that my life is living now is not by logic. The worst thing that you can ever do is think realistically. Realistically, the way things are going now, I will never know where I'm going to end up going. Realistically, I shouldn't be making this video. Realistically, you shouldn't be watching this. Why? Because realistically, I don't know how any of this happened. But guess what? 4 years ago, I decided to get my camera and say, you know what, I'm going to consistently post. I was speaking to the camera as if I had 400,000 followers, when in reality I had 400 followers. I had 1.4 thousand followers, but 1,000 of them is because I paid for fake followers because I wanted to feel like I had followers. And guess what? Within time, I started to become more perspicacious, I started to become more aware, and I said to myself, this is what I want to do. I just kept on going. I didn't see the result. Of course I was frustrated. Imagine doing content for 4 years and speaking to a brick wall, 1,000 fake followers, having like 50 people view my stories, and those 50 people, like 30 of them were just my close friends, which I had at that time. So now think about it. Do you think that was not hard? But yet I kept on going because I had the vision that on the other side was everything that I wanted. Now look at my projection. Now we are here today. Why? Because I didn't think realistically. I had faith. But most of you guys are governed by fear. And remember what I told you before? Where faith lives, there cannot be life. Why? Because it restricts you. Faith and fear, they both require you to believe in something that you cannot see. And having fear is still faith because you don't know what's to come ahead of you. Now, the same way after 4 years, it only took 10 days to get 100,000 followers. This is the art of the compound effect. Don't think those 4 years were in vain. Don't think that what you're doing now is in vain. Every piece of hard work that you're doing is what you're doing. You're putting your money in. You're putting your money in. It's compounding. It's compounding. But this is where you actually ask yourself, is this what I want? And you keep on going, which is why you need to trust the process, take the action, and always believe in yourself. The time now is 23:33. You guys know what time I'm waking up tomorrow. I wanted to share this with you guys before I went to sleep. Love you guys. It's late now. I'm tired. I had to get this message out for you guys. Love you guys. Let's go.